Hello viewers and welcome to the morning program, the Dailies on Echo Television International, where we keep you up to date with what is happening from our papers. We can still see that the validity of the outcome of the presidential poll is still what is making the heads on our paper this morning. So we encourage you to just keep, sit down tight, and as we take you down through other stories that are still on the papers. I have Rachel Tansy with me.
Morning, sir. I'm fine. How about you?
I'm okay, thank God. We're live on Facebook and also on YouTube, so you can do well to drop your comments or your contribution on any story that is of interest to you. And I am your host, Elisha Dasham. Let's start with the first paper, which is the New Telegraph newspaper.
On New Telegraph newspaper, facility decay threatens 538 billion naira investments in Nigerian ports. Coming from telcos, subscribers abandon 96.8 million registered SIMs. The details can be found on page 17. Senate indicts Accountant General over 74 billion naira social benefits payment. Federal government states spent 50 billion naira out of 400 billion naira approved for poverty reduction. The statement coming from Governor Sule, and you can find the details on page 5. FEC approves 337 vehicles worth 17.2 billion naira for customs. Labour Party alleges impersonator sponsored to smear Obi. The details of this story can be found on page 3 and 26. The big story on New Telegraph, 10th House. Bajabiamila moves against deputy and others. Roots for our successor. First female rep-elect Onoha joins race. Reps Northern Caucus weighs option. APC will decide 10th Assembly leadership after Ramadan. And on Guba polls, court nullifies Kogi APC's delegate list as party adopts direct primary. Diaspora health workers petition National Assembly over doctors' 5-year compulsory service bill. The details can be found inside the paper on page 5. IPOP wants Southeast to stop stay at home on Monday. The details can be found on page 7 and 29. Lagos 8-story building collapsed in Banana Island. Herdsmen killed 89 in 31 Benue communities. The details coming from the group, and you can read more of it on page 2 and 4. At the downside of the paper, still on presidential poll, aggrieved parties can prove non-compliance within 180 days. Coming from Sage, APC asks tribunal to dismiss Atiku and PDP's petition. There is a study that ties rising eczema cases to car exhaust chemical. The details can be found on page 26. We have a picture story. Do well to grab New Telegraph and find the details inside. And that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
And on First News, we have anti-Dati comment. Why I oppose Shoyinka Chamanda Adechi. You can find more of that story inside for those who were able to read what she said about the outcome of the presidential polls. You can read more of that inside the paper. How Peter Obi spent Easter in detention in London. You can find more inside the paper. Zone Senate presidency to the Southeast, APC coalition writes Adamu. Wike supported me with thousands of dollars when I contested governorship in 2019, coming from Dino Milai. And we have the big story. Tinubu didn't need 25% of FCT votes to win presidential poll. INEC tells Atiku, says APC candidate met all legal requirements to be declared winner. FCT not accorded special status in the constitution. Other stories we have: you are a wet doll. Rivers PDP tackle Dino Milai for fighting Wike. And on PDP National Secretariat, we have Anyanwu emerges governor candidate in Imo State. Tinubu's presidency, my life in danger, ex-Lagos deputy governor cries out. You can read more of that story inside the paper. Peter Obi, call for my arrest prosecution baseless, coming from Naya Mohammed as the Minister of Information. And from Bayelsa Guba poll, Governor Diri gets a PDP ticket. We are aware that these are some of the three states that will be running their election in November. That is for Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi. We can see already stories are capturing that on our front page of the first news. So you can do well to get the first news and read more details of any story that is of interest to you.
On Daily Independent, Senate suspend the Accountant General of the Federation indictment over 74 billion naira extra budget repayment. And on Kogi Guba, shock as court nullifies Kogi APC ward LGA congresses. The big story on Daily Independent, IMF OK's tight fiscal policy, increased tax for Nigeria, warns rising interest rate could trigger global recession. You can start with the story on the front page and continue inside the paper on page 13. Federal government okays 23 billion naira for Enugu Onitsha Road Third Mainland Bridge. Approves 18.544 billion naira for renovation of custom auditorium vehicles. Obi traducers impersonate him in London, UK immigration reveals. Diri Anya will match PDP Guba candidate in Bayelsa and Imo. Atiku can't help you win Kogi Guba ticket, Rivers PDP tells Dino. Still on Labour Party crisis, state chairman stop Apapa from entering National Secretariat. At the downside of the paper, interim government alien to Nigeria says CSOs caution against Rwanda experience. The details can be found inside the paper on page 6. We have a picture story where we can still see the president at his visit to Saudi Arabia, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
And on Vanguard newspaper, starting with the big story, presidential poll, APC, PDP fight over validity of outcome with rider, why APC's electoral victory must not stand, coming from the PDP PCC. Says judiciary on trial must save Nigeria. Tinubu's victory reflects will of Nigerians, coming from APC. Tells Atiku we didn't supply beavers to INEC. And then we also have at whipping up sentiment won't help PDP case. And just a little detail of Senator Kashim Shettima maintained that Obi was bereft of Lucas standing to file a petition to challenge his election victory. He argued that Obi was not validly nominated to contest the presidential election, in line with the mandatory provision of Section 77, subsection 2 and subsection 3 of the Electoral Act 2022. He insisted that Obi's name was not found on the register of members of the Labour Party, noting that he defected to the party from the People's Democratic Party less than 30 days before the primary election that produced him as a presidential candidate was conducted. Adducing reason why he won the presidential election, Tinubu, in a parliamentary objection he filed through his team of lawyers led by Chief Wole Onyepe Kubsan, said it was his consistency and track record of excellence in public service that endeared him to millions of the electorates across the federation. He further accused Obi of jumping from one political party to the other, insisting that the Labour Party lacked the requisite structure to win the presidential contest. On his qualification, Tinubu told the Presidential Election Petition Court, PEPC, that he is the holder of a degree of Bachelor of Science in Business and Administration from the Chicago State University since 1979, saying he has vast private and public sector work experience, including working with Mobil Oil Nigeria as an auditor and later treasurer of the company. In a bid to actualize his quest for public service, left his lucrative and secure employment in Mobil of Oil Nigeria and foray into active politics as a founding member of the defunct Social Democratic Party (SDP). In 1992, he was elected by an overwhelming majority of lawful votes cast as senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, representing Lagos West Senatorial District. And you can continue to read more detail. We can see the fight is still ongoing, trying to see who actually won. We saw that from the papers yesterday, Rachel, where INEC stated the fact that it wasn't mandatory or
Mhm.
it wasn't compulsory for the results to be displayed electronically. And then we also saw the fact that it said Atiku and Obi do not have a case. And we can see from what is very clear on the Vanguard this morning, we can see that they're even saying that Obi actually did not get all that it takes to win that election because he defected to the Labour
Yeah.
Party, I think, less than 30 days to the primary. Of course, when you are trying to defend your side, you're trying to make sure your case is clean. You try to dig whatever you can dig because even
Mm.
the Labour Party is actually crying the fact that somebody's impersonating Obi in London. He was in prison. So a lot of things will be coming up. I don't think I'm not surprised when I begin to see stories like this
Of course
emerging on our
not.
papers. But I
Mm.
just hope that at the long run, the unity and the peace of Nigeria should be at the heart of all of this, whatever
Competition.
context it is that it is presently. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed and we just encourage our viewers to please maintain peace, maintain whatever it is, harmony. Don't get into any fight. At the end of the day, you will lose your life. So we just keep praying and we keep trusting and we know that the courts, because they are the fate of the common man, that they are our last fate right now. So
Yeah.
whoever your candidate is, you just trust that the court will do the right thing at the end of the day.
Mm.
Still on Vanguard newspaper, we have a story on budget deficit, DMO to sell 360 billion naira FGN bonds. You can find that on page 19. Coming from Kaduna, 125 killed, 60 kidnapped in 82 days. It's really sad when we hope something will be done on that issue in Kaduna State, especially the southern Kaduna. Ignore opposition, PDP won issue of governorship election in Kogi. Wike called me 19 times in 2 hours lobbying to be Atiku's running mate, coming from Dino Milai. You can find that story on page 12. Bribe for promotion, PSC force headquarters to unearth syndicate. You can find that on page 8. Labour Party crisis fister as friction clash over control of secretariat. You can find that too on page 8. How Obi was detained at London airport for hours with the rider. Obi won't be detained by the UK immigration official harassment. This is coming from the media office. And on killings, how headers kill 89, reduce 31 communities to rubble, coming from the Benue local government leaders. And on the 10th Assembly, APC Chief meet Tinubu in Paris over zoning. And we have a column from Olufasan and another on sports, so you can do well to grab the paper. We have a pitch story here at the World Bank IMF meeting. We can see the CBN governor with other stakeholders over there during the meeting. So you can do well to get the Vanguard and read more stories that of interest to you this morning.
On Nigerian News Direct, workers trapped at 7-story building collapses in Banana Island. DMO reopens 4 federal government bonds valued at 360 billion naira for subscription. Interim government coalition of CSOs warn aggrieved politicians against disrupting May 29 and over. The big story on Nigerian News Direct, 400 billion naira poverty elevation fund implementation gulp 50 billion naira, coming from the steering committee. Performance low, not where we expected to be, a statement coming from Sule, and you can find the details on page 3. Ogun Infrastructures, Pelican Valley earmarks 1 billion naira for concrete roads in estate. The matter holds interactive session with security agencies in Cross River State. The details can be found on page 2, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
Alright, let's take a look at the Voice of Liberty. Coming from Kano, APC asks tribunal to declare governor poll inconclusive. You can find more of that story inside the paper. And on insecurity, federal government over 95 million naira for installation of railway scanners. And we have NEF strike neutralize fleeing bandits in Kaduna State. And we have the big story for the Voice of Liberty that said insightful comments. Arrest Peter Obi, Dati Ahmed. This is coming from the Northern Elders telling the security force The coalition of Northern Elders have called for the arrest of the Labour Party presidential candidate. You should ask me what I feel is the reason because of this. It's nothing more than substandard, I'm using of substandard, materials for building. And you can link that to even our roots ritual, because if the building was actually allocated to the right architecture, we had the right civil engineers working together, we're able to test the ground to be sure that it's good. We're sure that the materials, the constructor was the constructors that were giving that project actually bought the right materials. Then wouldn't have seen these buildings collapsing, because people always want to see it from the fact that okay, maybe it's a spiritual thing. But if you ask me, there's nothing spiritual. This is something that is as simple as knowing the right thing to do. But when somebody somewhere is thinking about his own selfish interest, and then you see that every time we have this building being collapsed, somebody die as a result of it, many get injured as a result of it. So this is just a clarion call to everybody that when you're given a responsibility, you do it to the best of your ability. We see that even when road projects are being given, substandard materials are being used, and then after 6 months, 1 year, once the rain starts, we are back to square one, potholes left, right, and center. So I hope that all of this thing will grow from this level we are having of seeing that buildings keep collapsing. And then if you take a good look at the videos of when that building, you see that there are other buildings still standing, but those were actually crashing out. Why are those buildings still standing and that was falling? And this is the same. So we need to grow as a country to when you're given a project, no matter how little it is, that you give your best. At the end of the day, you never can even tell. Your loved ones might even be the ones living in that building. And so what will you have to say for yourself that you use substandard, materials for such a project, and at the end of the day, buildings are collapsing, roads will see accident left, right, and center. So I hope that as a country, this is not just pointing a finger at anybody, but everybody needs to go back and let's start doing the right thing. And I hope that those who are giving agency that go around inspecting all of these things will do the right thing at the end of the day.
Yes, I think you said it all. It all boils down to everybody doing their job properly. Whoever is in charge of surveying the land that is fit for a story building, if that person have done his job well, and we're done with that. The engineers in charge of constructing this building and making sure they don't use substandard or make use of the right amount of concrete, of cement, of metal, of stones. These are all the things that if you make sure you use the right thing, then I don't think this building will collapse for whatsoever reason. It has no basis for it to collapse in whatever way. So we're just looking forward to a Nigeria where everybody functions. If you're given 100,000 to bring out the quality of 100,000, don't collect 100,000 and bring out the quality of 50,000. Bring out the quality of what you have been assigned to and what you have been given to. As far as I'm concerned, this is the corruption we're talking about. And we keep pointing our fingers to the government, to the politicians at the top. But what about you at your own level? Most of these companies that are being contracted are even private companies, because the government are faced with bigger projects like roads and thousands of kilometers, government buildings and all of that. Most of these buildings are mostly private contractors, and as a private contractor in your position, you are not doing the right thing. The owner of this building perhaps has given you the money for this, and you decide to do what you want to do. Or you could be the owner of the building and your contractor told you it is 1 million that can give you a good quality, but you insist that let him give you a building of 500,000. We are not sincere as a people. And it's about time we stop pointing fingers at the government alone and also look at ourselves, because we can't blame the government for this falling down, because the government is not always. We can see that we are also our problems in a lot of ways. So I'm just looking forward to us as the citizens of this country playing our role well. Then if we do that, then perhaps we can point back at the government and say they are corrupt. But as it stands now, even us, we're not doing the right thing, even when it is clear for us that, you know what, this is what you're supposed to do, but you're not doing it. I'm looking forward to where we will grow as a country, Sally, and keep doing the right thing.
Of course, Richard. Let's look at other stories still on the Voice of Liberty. Real reason Peter Obi was detained and grilled in London, coming from the campaign office. And the last story on the paper on PDP crisis, G5 governors push for mini convention to replace IU and others. And you can find more inside the paper. That's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On Nigerian Tribune, APC adopts direct primary for Kogi governorship as court nullifies delegate list. APC will zone 10 National Assembly leadership after Ramadan, coming from a Senate spokesman. NAMS threatens civil disobedience over school fees hike, subsidy removal, says more than 30% of students drop out due to high fees and hardship. Obi's impersonator may implicate him, Labour Party raises alarm. Narrates how he was harassed at Heathrow Airport. The details can be found on page 2. Ayawu Diri emerged PDP governorship candidates in Imo and Bayelsa. My son, not a Yahoo boy, mother of man killed by mob in Ondo, cries out. The details can be found on page 29. Police arrest 2 over killing of OAU undergraduate. Students stage protest, and the details can be found on page 29. Oyo Assembly gives Makinde approval to deduct 5% for stamp duties recovery. The details can be found on page 4. And the story, which is on most of our papers, strategy as 7-story building collapses in Banana Island. No fatality, coming from the government. Expert questions stage certification of Lagos State Building Control Agency. The details can be found on page 28, and we can see the rubble, what is left of the collapsed building. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Guardian newspaper, we can see the big picture here. $800 million World Bank subsidy palliative. Nigerians share $747 million. Logistic Gov $53 million. You can find more of that story on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. We have here that say Chibok girls, the pains that won't go away 9 years after. You can find that story on page 2. And we have the story from Peter Obi here. From the phone link to treason charge, Obi steer fresh controversy with London arrest. Yoruba group won against stopping Tinubu inauguration May 29. And CSO wants River State account audited over Milai's allegation against Wike. You can find that story inside the paper. Workers trapped as 7-story building collapsed in Banana Island in Lagos. Details also can be found on page 9, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, how Obi was detained in London by 8. He was impersonated. G5 governors mini convention plan deepens PDP crisis. National stadiums to relay the hard facts. You can find the details of that story inside the paper on page 6. Obi lacks right to contest my victory, Tinubu tells tribunal. Shetima validly nominated as running mate. APC Atiku PDP can query president-elect qualification. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 4. Presidential poll must be credible in Nigeria's history. I take that again. Presidential poll most credible in Nigerian history. Observers report raid Beavers High, says Kenyamu and others. Gunmen kidnap, kill police inspectors. Protests in OAU over killing of students. The details can be found on page 27, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, we have CBN Forex ban. Nigerians imported 18 trillion naira cooking oil, meat and others in 7 years. This is the report with the writer. Importers ordered agri and animal product orders from Asia, EU and African countries. Firms sourced dollars at parallel market over CBN Forex ban on 41 items. Nigeria imported not less than nine items worth 18.12 trillion naira from the forex ban list of the Central Bank of Nigeria between 2016 and 2022, findings by the Punch have shown. The CBN has categorized about 41 import items as not valid for forex, which means that the importer will not be able to get forex from the Apex ban for such items. The Apex Bank said the restriction was part of effort to sustain the stability of the foreign exchange market, ensure effective utilization of foreign exchange, and the derivation of optimum benefit from goods and services imported into the country. However, these items were not banned or prohibited by the Nigerian Customs Service, so they can still be imported. According to an analysis of Nigerian Foreign Trade Report of the National Bureau of Statistics from 2016 to 2022, items such as crude palm oil, vegetable products, animal products, meat, vegetable fats and oil, steel products, rubber, plastic, clothes, and textiles were imported from various countries. And you can continue to read more of that story. And Richard, this is what we've been saying. Let's look into it. We can see how much we spend looking at the forex ban, and we're spending over 18 trillion naira for cooking oil, meat, and others in 7 years. And it's really sad, and that's why we keep talking about doing more for ourselves, because imagine we have all that it takes. How can we be importing palm oil, rubber, plastic, textile, meat, things that you can actually find them here? And I just hope that we'll do more. So with the incoming administration, let us see what their moves are, what are their plans are concerning all of this thing. We keep saying if we want to control inflation to a large extent, then we have to look into consuming what we have, and let us stop importing all of these things. So that's why when there was the war in Ukraine and Russia, we were crying that cereal, oil, and all of that will be affected. But then I hope that we'll look inwardly. Let's develop what we have, and then I think the tears will reduce to a large extent. So we look forward to all of that.
And I keep saying that one of the mistakes the Nigerian government have made was not to take agriculture to the next level. And that's why we're still backward, and it's going to take us so much work to take it to where it's supposed to be, when it should have been a continuous protest rather than a progress rather than a backward progress. As far as I'm concerned, it has been backward or stagnant or completely slow, but then we can take that, because when I see meat, I laugh because I know it's the finished product that we keep talking about. Things like sausage, corned beef, the things that are being canned and sent over to us. These are finished goods that we can make and be at the end of exporting it to other African countries that we are way ahead of economically. But we refuse. We stopped at being okay with our raw materials and not finishing it. So the government is supposed to have mega farms just for cows, where we can make our sausages, just for chicken, just for fish, where instead of importing all these canned fish, we have them here doing it ourselves, that we consume our product. So like when I look at this thing, I look at things that we could have been having this more than 20 years in this country. Having our own finished product would have been a done and dusted thing in Nigeria. It would have been normal. We might just be now at the position of growing it to where we don't only consume it, but then we export it. There's so much work to be done, and I'm really looking forward to an administration that is ready to do that work, because we know the solution. I keep saying it. We are tired of seeing the problems. Let's talk about the solution and let the government start working towards that solution, because we know the way forward. We know what is needed to be done to take Nigeria to the next level. However, we are looking forward to a government that is willing and ready to do the work that will take us to where we are supposed to be long time ago.
Of course, Richard. Well, let's look at other stories still on the Punch. Federal government to repay World Bank $800 million loan for 25 years. You can find out on page 19. Doctors in diaspora petition National Assembly over anti-migration bill. Senate probes Accountant General over 74 billion naira funds. You can find out on page 22. We have the picture story on most of our papers. Banana Island 7-story building collapses. Lagos alert structure lacks the permit. And we have other story. Atiku dismisses exile plan. slam protesters. You can find that on page 12. Police arrest 2 over OAU students' death. Lagos Ibadan Stadium own 950 million naira electricity bill coming from Dari. You can find that story on page 13, and that's all on the Punch newspaper. But before we move further with other newspaper review, let's take this time out, and when we come back, we'll open the phone line so that you can actually air your views on any story that's of interest. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break. Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television International. We have quite a number of stories we've been looking at this morning. We saw the collapse of the 7-story building that collapsed in Banana Island. We've seen the back and forth also coming from the outcome of the presidential election. Some of the reasons why either the Labour Party or the PDP presidential candidate could not or could it have been the president elect as it is. And also we've seen that about $800 million is actually what the federal government is owing the World Bank to pay in 25 years. These are many of the stories of what we have on the papers. I still have Rachel with me. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this with me. Of course, our phone numbers are open at this moment. Our phone numbers are displayed on your screen. Please do well to call us, and when you do, turn down the volume of your TV set so we can hear you clearly, be audible enough, and also remember you have just 30 seconds to air your views as other callers are waiting on the queue. And let's move further with the newspaper review, looking at the Daily Sun.
In the Daily Sun newspaper, Obi raises the alarm over impersonation, framing plot in UK. The big story, 25% FCT votes not needed to win presidency, coming from INEC. Tells tribunal it can declare winner without recourse to beavers and electronic transmission. Leadership APC to unveil zoning formula after Ramadan. Court nullifies Kogi APC delegates lead party to adopt direct primary for Guba. Labour Party crisis, state chairman stop Apapa-led NWC from entering party's headquarters. The details can be found on page 24. OAU students protest mob killing of colleague, call for prescription of SUG. Diri Ayawu emerged Bayelsa Imo PDP governorship candidate. FEC approves 6 billion naira for third mainline bridge maintenance. Reviews old Enugu Onitsha road contract by 17 billion naira. At the downside of the paper, many injured as 7-story building collapses in Lagos. We have a picture story where we can see Dr. Oji Kalu and others at the service of songs in honor of Kalu's wife, Ufeoma, in North Carolina, USA. And that's all the news on Daily Newspaper.
On this day newspaper, again, IMF urges Nigeria to increase tax and reduce borrowing. Canvasses targeted subsidies for health and education sectors. You will read more of that on page 10. And this is not the first time we're seeing increase of tax. It has been on our paper, I think, from last year, where we saw that rather than borrowing, let us increase the tax. But the problem I will have with increasing the tax is, Richard, if I am paying tax and I'm seeing where this tax is going to, I won't have a problem with it. But we keep this tax we're paying with card monetary fund, or what we need to do rather than borrowing and borrowing. But then the problem is we need isn't well should be, that is why you increase it. So all of this is, so we are hoping to see the agents and the people.
Our tax revenue boards in various states and even at the federal are being distributed to the federal government, the state government, and the local government for like running of offices and other things in the local government, cutting fin rates through tax, and a lot of projects that have been generated over years, and those in this ministry have been doing a lot of work. We saw the finance minister breaking down individuals like you and I generate, just as you said, from our banks, from the goods we consume, from the services and all of that, However, I keep saying that it's not far-fetched. The corruption keeps eating us at every level. That is why we cannot see the dividend of the things we keep doing in this country. Money is being allocated to different from the state to the local government and even the federal government, and most of the time these monthly revenues that are being allocated to them are from our tax. So we're looking forward to where not only that we will just hear that, you know what, our tax has been, we need that transparency, clarity, that, you know what, this is what the tax revenue has been used to be done. It's not only about portable to say, you know what, my tax has been made appropriate use of. And I think until we see such, before the government can go ahead and say they will increase the tax. But as it is now, even as the revenue boards are saying that they have generated a lot of income, what are Nigerians able to see? Tomorrow it might be increased, but as long as there are no priority and the people that are being given this money are not doing what is expected, we will just keep being taxed and not see the results of it.
Of course, let's look at other stories still on this day newspaper. With 5.5% stake, Femi Otitola emerges Transcorp largest individual shareholder. You can find that on page 8. Nation Law, find that on page 42. And coming from Labour Party, Obi's Truseeders trade him to UK, bent on implicating him. London immigration reveals former Anambra governor being impersonated. You can find that story on page 10. The big story on US court orders of $460,000 forfeiture against me not enforceable, coming from Tinubu. This order was never registered in any Nigerian court. APC joined INEC and urges panel to dismiss Atiku and PDP's petition. And then President-elect media team meets foreign press in US, dismisses rigging claims. We still have the picture story that shows spring meetings of the IMF and the World Bank.
Newspaper focus on tax retails tribunal. The big story: amid renewed attacks, villagers mobilize, kill 50 bandits in self-defense. The details can be found on page 4. The writer following that story: as terrorists kill 20, abduct 32 in Niger and Kaduna. We abandoned the bodies in Kainji National Park. Jiri Ayanwu emerged Bayelsa Imo PDP governorship candidate. Importers to clear cargoes from Lekki port in 2 days, coming from NPA. Scores cheat dead as 7-story building collapses in Lagos. And we still have a picture story showing the collapse. At the top of the paper, how Obi was questioned, detained at Heathrow Airport. We are ready for Adamawa KB return post. This is an assurance coming from INEC. And that's all the news on leadership.
Alright, let's take a look at the world of business on Business Day newspaper. Senate presidency rate strokes Muslim ticket concern. You can find that story on the front page and more on page 30. And then we have election petition, what Nigeria can learn from Ghana and Kenya. You want to know what we have to learn, you read that story on page 2. And on flight suspension, Nigerian cross border to fly Emirates. And now we have search for senior officers for the next government turns to CBN governor. You can find more of that on page 3. We have a picture story where we can see Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala with another stakeholder over there, the World Trade Organization, during the WTO agreement there in DC, together with the IMF, where we saw the CBN governor. So you can grab the Business Day newspaper and read more detail of any story that is of interest to you.
On Punch Sports Extra, injured Rashford and Shaw out. Osimhen Ice CAF 40 Award, Nigerian tip to join Bayern. Milan Rail Track Chukwueze. Coming from Flamini, hints at Arsenal takeover. From Pogba, may play against Sporting, Reds make Mount Summer target. The big story: game changers, strikers, midfielders, defenders, and goalies making the difference in NPPL. Lobby edge Rivers in just thriller. Fans lack grid against Falcons. The details can be found on page 7. And we have results for the Champions League. We have Real Madrid beating Chelsea 2, And then we have AC Milan beating Napoli with 1. And that's all the news on Sponge Sports Extra.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this with
You're
me.
welcome, Sarah.
It was really a privilege, doing all of this with you, with a lot of stories on the papers this morning. And at this moment, we would like to just call it a date with all of you. Thank you so much to all our viewers. Thank you to the crew members and to everybody that made sure that this program was a success. Until we come here again tomorrow, to have a blessed day ahead.